Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. The Senate Republican leader cuts a deal with Democrats and a new plan to avoid a default. It would allow Democrats to raise the borrowing limit on their own. A judge grants a hearing to consider a restraining order on New York City's vaccine mandate for city workers. We also hear how the Jewish community is responding to the city's sweeping mandates. The White House is pushing Germany to suspend the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, this as a deterrent to Putin's aggression against Ukraine. A Senate hearing provides more updates on the U.S.'s Russia policy. A woman identified as Carolyn testifies in the sex trafficking case against Ghislaine Maxwell. Carolyn is the third woman to testify in the trial that she was abused by Epstein. The House passed a bill last night that would pave the way for an increase in the federal debt ceiling. It's part of a plan to avert the first potential U.S. default, which is when the country fails to pay off its debts on time. NTD's Jessica Beatty explains.
The bill is passed.
The House passed a bill late Tuesday that would allow Congress to fast-track legislation raising the federal debt limit without Republican votes. This after Democrat and Republican leaders in the Senate agreed to a one-time process that would allow Democrats to raise the debt ceiling on their votes alone. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell expects a vote this week.
We'll be voting on it Thursday, and I'm confident that this particular procedure, coupled with the avoidance of Medicare cuts, will achieve enough Republican support.
If the bill passes the Senate and is signed into law, then Congress could vote on raising the limit. That legislation would require Congress to specify the exact dollar amount of a new national debt limit, likely more than $30 trillion. The fast-track process would expire after January 15th. Also Tuesday night, the House passed a bill authorizing nearly $770 billion in Pentagon funding, and that sets defense policy. The bill contains changes to how sexual assault and harassment cases are prosecuted and handled within the military. It also includes a 2.7% pay increase for military service members and DoD civilian employees. It passed with strong bipartisan support. The bill now moves to the Senate, which will likely vote on it later this week. It then would go to President Biden for his signature. Meanwhile, Republicans on the Senate Finance Committee are raising concerns about Democrats' social spending bill.
The Democrats' reckless spend and tax spree relies on a number of budget gimmicks in an attempt to hide the true cost of its misguided policies.
The White House says the bill would cost around $1.8 trillion and that it's fully paid for. But the nonpartisan Nonprofit Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget says those numbers rely on arbitrary expiration dates. And if the bill's policies are extended permanently, it could actually cost $4.8 trillion. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The GOP is inviting guests to let out their grievances about the tax hikes embedded in Biden's spending bill. One small business owner testified, pleading to lawmakers don't tax small business owners to death. NTD's Miguel Moreno reports.
Engraved on the facade of the IRS building in Washington is a quote by a former Supreme Court justice. Taxes are what we pay for a civilized society. But how much is too much taxation? This question is being debated now as lawmakers consider President Biden's Build Back Better spending package.
If we get hit with what is being proposed, I cannot continue to pay bonuses, contribute to 401k plans, benefits like we do today. My employees get hurt.
That's John Sullivan, president of Dana Wallboard Supply, testifying at a virtual Republican House committee meeting. Sullivan says his small business has 23 employees and he makes $1 million a year, but takes home far less than $400,000. He says the country's inflation in combination with the tax changes in Biden's bill would force him to pass on the burden to employees.
Everyone in Washington, D.C. talks about listening to Main Street and making sure we aren't hurting small businesses. This directly hurts small businesses.
Biden's spending package would do a lot. According to business law firm Stinson, the legislation would charge some business owners with a new 3.8% tax on income. Stinson says some individuals with businesses and an adjusted gross income of $400,000 would be affected by this rule. As Republicans highlight the bill's impact on taxes, Democrats on the Hill are drawing attention to other parts of the spending package.
Build Back Better will make it cheaper for parents to raise their kids. by providing the largest investment in child care in American history. It'll help our economy. Wherever you go, you hear about shortages of labor. One of the main reasons is inadequate child care. By expanding child care, we're going to help parents get back to work and expand the labor force in a very significant way.
Senate Democrats want to pass the Build Back Better bill before Christmas. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
On Tuesday, a judge in New York granted a hearing to consider pausing one of the city's vaccine mandates. The mandate in question applies to all city workers, which includes police and firefighters. The hearing involves the case brought on by an NYPD detective who says he has natural immunity and will not consent to vaccination. His lawsuit alleges the mandate goes beyond a limited emergency health measure, and it says the order applies with equal force to city employees who have little or no contact with the public. The hearing does not affect Mayor Bill de Blasio's latest mandate for private sector employees. The deputy mayor for Health and Human Services says vaccines are critical to combating COVID and that the mandate protects families and communities. The Orthodox Jewish community in New York City disagrees with the city's vaccine mandate for kids. The distaste comes as New York City sets vaccination requirements for children as young as 5 years old. A Jewish woman in Brooklyn expresses her concerns about the vaccine.
I don't think it should be city mandated. I think every parent should be on top of their own kids. And I'm not going to give the vaccine to my kids. There aren't enough studies on it. So I think it's every parent, individual. I have my own opinions. And I think it's just another way of the government, controlling our lives.
As winter approaches, the city's data shows infections are on the rise, but another Brooklyn Jew tells a different story.
Nobody's sick. Well, why we have to wear masks? Big part is have COVID, have antibodies, and everything is fine.
About a quarter of New Yorkers aged 5 to 12 have taken at least one dose. On the federal level, Republican Senator John Boozman says mandating a vaccine and enforcing it through OSHA sets a bad precedent. This is the agency President Biden has tried using to implement his nationwide private sector mandate.
The idea that an unelected bureaucracy, very small agency, can put forward this type of mandate in the form of OSHA, that sets all kinds of terrible precedent for the future. The other problem is there's a competitive disadvantage. This is for 100 employees or more. What if you've got 90 employees and you're competing against somebody who's got 110? So there's the unfunded mandates that are going to be on that, again, them losing a significant percentage in many cases of their workforce.
Boozman said he feels that the public should be vaccinated, but it shouldn't result from a government decree. President Biden says more vaccinations are a way to end the pandemic quickly. The Omicron strain is able to bypass the protection given by the Pfizer vaccine more than other variants. That's according to an early study by the African Health Research Institute. Earlier, I spoke with Dr. Robert Lahita, who is a director at the Institute for Autoimmune and Rheumatic Disease at St. Joseph Health, to learn more about Omicron and how vaccines are being used to protect against it. He says he hopes it will continue to be the case that the Omicron strain causes mild cases of COVID.
Well, we hope so. You know, the scare that was put into everybody, and I told people last Friday, the day, Black Friday as it was, I said, don't panic because we've had variants before, like the Mu and the Lambda variant from South America, and they turned out to be nothing. But they were saying, that the South African scientists had detected 60 mutations, 30 of which were at the spike protein. Now, the spike protein is that protein at which the virus sticks. And it is very, very important that most immunoglobulins, or something we call antibodies, stick to the spike protein. And if the spike protein's altered in structure, it doesn't stick. So the point is that this is a very transmissible virus, 5 times more commonly transmissible than the Delta variant. But the stories I've heard so far, and you might have other data, indicate that it's not a very serious infection.
Well, the World Health Organization said the Omicron strain is a variant of concern, but Dr. Fauci says early data on it is encouraging. How can we make sense of this?
Well, you can make sense of it by saying that, look, the Omicron variant may well be like the common cold. After all, the common cold, one of the causative agents of the common cold is coronavirus. So the way I see it, the Omicron variant could really be related to the common cold. And it may be that this is going to produce mild symptoms, especially in the vaccinated patients. We don't have enough data to say that if you're unvaccinated and you get the Omicron, you're going to be very, very sick. We simply don't know that yet. But my prediction and Fauci's prediction, and the reason we think it's so encouraging is this is all from South African data, which is fairly lengthy, that patients who get the Omicron are not very ill. It's as though they have a simple cold.
Do you anticipate multiple versions of the vaccine will be developed to keep up with these variants, or is it a one-size-fits-all approach?
Well, right now it's one size fits all, but speaking to the BioNTech chief scientist, he says they're already in development. Pfizer-BioNTech is already in development of a vaccine that is tailored against the Omicron variant. It's very easy to do, and it'll take about 100 days before that vaccine's available. Now, why is it easy to do? Everybody asks me that. And I'm telling you that because of molecular medicine, 30 years ago, we couldn't do this. But now, because we know the RNA sequences within the virus, we can tweak the vaccine to be directed against the specific mutations that are on that, I guess it's like about 10% of the total RNA of 33,000 bases in the virus.
Louisiana's Supreme Court announces it will hear arguments in a pastor's fight against criminal charges. He faces penalties for holding church services in violation of the state's pandemic gathering limits. Tony Spell got national attention when he began to hold church services in March 2020. This was after Louisiana's governor had issued a ban on gatherings of more than 50 people. Spell is arguing that the ban violated First Amendment guarantees of religious freedom. Hundreds showed up to Spell's services. Spell says his members were not forced to come and that they have a mandate from God to continue to worship together. His Life Tabernacle Church is in the Baton Rouge area. Earlier this year, a state judge refused to throw out the charges made against Spell. An appeals court agreed. And the state Supreme Court has accepted the case for arguments. Spell is also seeking damages over the restrictions in federal court. In Southern California, police and firefighters are facing termination for not complying with the vaccination mandate. Here's NTD's Eileen Ng with more details.
As of Monday, 113 Los Angeles City firefighters were placed on leave without pay for failing to meet the city's COVID-19 vaccination mandate for municipal employees. The policy requires city employees to get vaccinated by December 18th. In the meantime, those who are unvaccinated need to submit to testing paid by the employee. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles Fire Department told NTD that the number of off-duty firefighters changes daily due to members updating their vaccination and testing status. In November, the department sent 222 notices to those who had not yet submitted their vaccination status or requested an exemption. Currently, 83% of the fire department is fully vaccinated. They intend to fill any vacancies with recent training graduates. Similarly, in San Diego, at least 160 police officers are also facing termination for not complying with the city's vaccination mandate within the next 30 days. Previously, the San Diego Police Officer Association told the mayor they will not agree to mandatory vaccinations. On November 19th, the mayor announced that all city employees must be vaccinated by December 1st. About 65% of the officers are vaccinated. Eileen Ng, NTD News, California.
Washington is ramping up its response against Putin's aggression. At the same time, a senior state official said if Russia invades Ukraine, Germany will support its Western allies by sanctioning the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. A Senate hearing brings us more details.
Thank you, Senator Richwood. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee is discussing updated U.S.-Russia policy. In a hearing Tuesday, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Victoria Nuland pledged that if Russia invades Ukraine, the U.S. and its Western allies will levy severe consequences on Moscow. She noted that the White House is consulting with Germany on this issue.
Today is the first day of the new German government, as you know, but we've already begun intensive consultations with them.
Senator Ron Johnson raised the question of sanctioning Nord Stream 2, a natural gas pipeline that runs from Russia to Germany under the Baltic Sea.
I can't think of a more powerful way to punish Russian aggression than by rolling back what progress has been made and, if at all possible, prevent the Nord Stream 2 from ever being completed. Is that something that is being discussed with allies? Is that something that's being contemplated?
I think if President Putin moves on Ukraine, our expectation is that the pipeline will be suspended.
President Biden spoke to Russian leader Vladimir Putin over video call ahead of the hearing. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan later explained that the future of Nord Stream 2 in the context of Russia invading Ukraine remains a priority for the United States.
When it comes to Nord Stream 2, the fact is that gas is not currently flowing through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which means that it's not operating, which means that it's not leverage for Putin. Indeed, it is a leverage for the West, because if Vladimir Putin wants to see gas flow through that pipeline, he may not want to take the risk of invading Ukraine.
According to Sullivan, Washington is operating under the assumption that Putin has not yet made a decision on whether to attack.
I made it very clear. If in fact he invades Ukraine, there will be severe consequences. Severe consequences.
Several GOP lawmakers released a report highlighting what they call the unusually cruel treatment that January 6 detainees are receiving in the D.C. jail. They're demanding an end to what they say is a two-tiered justice system in America.
As members of Congress, we're calling on our colleagues to step up, and we have to bring this to an end. We need a good justice system, not one that persecutes people.
At the press conference, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and 3 other House members released the report entitled Unusually Cruel, an Eyewitness Report from the D.C. Jail. In early November, Representatives Greene and Gomert got an opportunity to visit the January 6 detainees. They were shocked at the conditions in the D.C. jail and the inhumane treatment the detainees received, including solitary confinement, lack of medical treatment, and denial of access to their attorneys.
Pretrial confinement is not a place for punishment. That can only come after conviction. And yet here what we've seen in the D.C. jail amounts to a great deal of punishment.
Congressman Matt Gaetz said what they are demanding is a fair justice system for everyone.
It's the January 6 detainees who are denied basic access to medical care and constitutional rights today. But tomorrow, it could be the school board parents. The day after that, the rest of us, all of you.
They also criticized the House January 6 committee for focusing only on waging a political war against Republicans.
But yet they're unwilling to go to the D.C. jail. They're unwilling to release videotapes. They're unwilling to talk about the real things that happened that day. They just want to extend it to keep on attacking Trump.
They called on House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to release all the videos off Capitol Hill on January 6 so people can know what really happened on that day. They believe that's the only way to heal the nation.
A federal judge has set a trial date for former Trump advisor Steve Bannon. He'll appear on trial for contempt of Congress on July 18th of next year. The case stems from his refusal to obey a subpoena by the House committee amid its investigation of the January 6 Capitol breach. Bannon has pleaded not guilty. He had wanted the trial to start in October, while prosecutors asked for an April trial date. Bannon's attorney says the midsummer date won't give them enough preparation time. The July trial will put the politically charged, high-profile case front and center as the 2022 midterm campaign is in full swing. The judge is blocking off 2 weeks for the trial. Former death row inmate Scott Peterson is set to be resentenced to life in prison without parole. That's for the 2002 death of his wife, Lacey, and unborn son. The hearing is happening this morning in San Mateo County, California. The California Supreme Court overturned his death sentence on appeal last year, but kept his murder conviction in place. The court found potential jurors were dismissed erroneously, in part because they expressed general objections to the death penalty on a questionnaire. The same judge who will resentence him will also consider next year whether the case should be retried. Peterson maintains he is innocent and claims a juror lied in order to get chosen for the jury. A hearing on the juror misconduct claim is scheduled for February. A third woman testified on Tuesday in the sex trafficking case against Ghislaine Maxwell. The accuser said she felt broken after the British socialite and Jeffrey Epstein abused her at age 14. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The woman, identified as Carolyn, said Maxwell would sometimes call her to schedule massages for Epstein, where the late financier would sexually abuse her. Carolyn testified that when she was 14, she had told Maxwell her age at Epstein's estate in Palm Beach, Florida. Carolyn is the third woman to testify that she was abused by Epstein at Maxwell's trial. Maxwell, 59, has pleaded not guilty to sex trafficking and other charges. Lawyers for Maxwell said she is being scapegoated for Epstein's alleged crimes. After Epstein killed himself in 2019 in a Manhattan jail while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Jurors had previously heard from 2 women. They also said Maxwell set them up for sexual encounters with Epstein when they were teenagers. The women, known by the pseudonyms Jane and Kate, testified that they had been aspiring entertainers and that Maxwell had told them Epstein could help advance their careers. Carolyn's background is different. She testified that her mother was an alcoholic and her grandfather sexually abused her when she was 4. Carolyn also said she became addicted to cocaine and dropped out of school in the 7th grade. Carolyn said she was introduced to Epstein in 2002 by Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein and Maxwell's most prominent accusers. The trial was expected to go into mid-January, but prosecutor Allison Moe told U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan that the government may finish its case by Thursday. It is unclear how long a defense case might last. The trial has been going on 7 days so far. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
New York's governor announces new funding for Afghan refugees. The state has resettled over 1,000 of them. The Afghan refugee coordinator says the U.S. has resettled over half of the total number.
We are today announcing $2 million that I've designated to help for refugee resettlement agencies.
Right here in New York and across the country, I have seen so many examples of communities coming together to embrace our Afghan allies. These allies are translators, they're veterans, they're humanitarian workers, journalists, women's rights activists, and others who put themselves in harm's way to support peace, security, and justice in Afghanistan, alongside the U.S. mission there.
Hochul says the funds will provide medical care, mental health treatment, language skills education, job training, and free immigration legal services. The announcement comes as New York continues to receive Afghan refugees who fled the country. The Taliban took over Afghanistan in August as U.S. troops withdrew. Hochul said New York's story has always been one of immigrants and that brave Afghan refugees will help write the next chapter. A large Christmas tree outside the Fox News building in New York City was set ablaze after midnight on Wednesday. Video shared on social media showed the top half of the tree engulfed in flames. The New York City Police Department says a 49-year-old man has been taken into custody. Police added that the attack did not appear to be motivated politically or premeditated. Local media reported that the 50-foot Christmas tree was covered in thousands of ornaments and lights. The tree was featured on Fox News during a tree lighting ceremony over the weekend. Indiana police investigating the unsolved murders of 2 teenage girls have a new target. They're now looking for whoever created a fake social media profile. The bodies of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German were found near a creek in Delphi in 2017. The killer was never found. But now authorities are looking at whoever is behind Snapchat and Instagram profile for the handle Anthony Shots, which was used from 2016 to 2017. The accounts used pictures of a male model to solicit nude images from young girls, obtain their addresses, and attempt to meet them. Police say the profile portrayed extreme wealth. The model in the photos is not a person of interest, but investigators are looking for anyone who might have interacted with the account or attempted to meet up with whoever is behind the profile. Are you spending too much time on social media? Many of us are. Now Instagram developers say they want to make younger users aware of that. NTD's Arian Pastar has more.
Time really flies when I'm scrolling through Instagram, and that's even more so for children. They are drawn to their phones and social media platforms. But soon, parents will know just how much time their child spends on Instagram. Instagram announced the new feature for parents on Tuesday. The app will also be sending out notifications to young users, reminding them to take a break from scrolling. The head of Instagram published a video on his Twitter account explaining the changes.
This, by the way, is part of a broader effort to try and give people more control over their experience of Instagram. Ultimately, you know what's best for you when it comes to how you use the app.
Experts say using too much social media can have bad outcomes for young adults.
We're hearing more and more about loneliness, anxiety, and depression. And even what we see commonly in our teens and our young adults that we're working with is this kind of insane perfectionism, that they live in this world where they're so afraid to mess up.
But the timing of the new feature's release is probably intentional. On Wednesday, the head of Instagram will testify before a Senate committee.
Just one day before they have to go and speak in front of Congress. And certainly there will be many detractors who will say that this method is less for mental health and data security than it is to be able to stand on that stage with the spotlight of the federal government on them and say, look at what we just did.
Those safety defaults.
Whistleblower reports show that Facebook and Instagram both know the harm their apps cause children and teens. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
President Biden's pick to lead Customs and Border Protection is confirmed by the Senate. The agency has been without a commissioner for more than 2 years. The new commissioner leaves behind a job as Tucson police chief. Chris Magnus's nomination has been a controversial one. Some have taken issue with the pick, while others say Magnus is an experienced and effective law enforcement leader. He goes from leading a department of about 800 officers in Tucson, Arizona, to leading the largest law enforcement agency in the country with 60,000 staff. In the past, he's openly opposed Trump-era immigration policies, but in his confirmation hearing, he spoke in favor of some policies the former president put in place. When he was chief of police in Richmond, California, Magnus brought homicide down to its lowest number in 4 decades. He was photographed with a Black Lives Matter sign in 2014 while in uniform, but faced criticism for police shootings that happened under his leadership. Magnus is considered a progressive who's likely to carry out Biden's agenda on the border. Tragedy strikes in India today after a military helicopter crashed in the southern part of the country. The accident killed the nation's defense chief and 12 others on board. The Indian Air Force confirmed on Twitter that General Bipin Rawat and his wife both died in the accident. Rawat was India's first chief of defense staff. He had served the country's current government since late 2019. The general was traveling from an Indian Air Force base to deliver a lecture at the Defense Services Staff College just 60 miles away. The accident occurred along the flight path near the town of Coonoor. The Air Force said the deaths also include 4 of the helicopter's 5 crew members. Investigations are ongoing. Still to come, winemakers think of an ingenious way to salvage grapes damaged by smoke in California wildfires, but it's a method they hope they won't always have to use. And rock music legends donate instruments that were used to make iconic songs. They're now on display in Los Angeles before an auction for charity. All that and more in just a minute.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your support. At MyPillow, we not only have pillows, but we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We're offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have this exclusive offer on the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. We also have the queen size My Pillow's regularly $79.98, now only $24.98 with your promo code. And we have the king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer.
Geologists are keeping a close eye on one of North America's most active fault lines after more than 40 earthquakes rattled off the coast of Oregon. The quake started Tuesday and continued into Wednesday, ranging from 3.5 to 5.8. The U.S. National Tsunami Warning Center says none of the earthquakes have triggered a tsunami alert. The swarm of earthquakes clustered about 200 to 250 miles west of Newport, Oregon. They were far enough away that people on land couldn't detect them. The fault line is called the Blanco Fracture Zone. Analysts at Oregon State University say it has produced more than 1,500 quakes of magnitude 4 or greater since the 1970s. Flash flood warnings are no longer in effect in Hawaii as a slow-moving storm moved out of the region. Thousands were left without electricity from a cyclone that hit the islands yesterday. On Oahu, Honolulu Fire Department workers rescued 5 boys between the ages of 9 and 10 from a raging creek. Later, another 5 people were rescued from another stream, and 1 was sent to the hospital. Rescue crews evacuated a home after a sidewall collapsed from rushing floodwaters. Several schools were closed due to severe weather. When wildfires in California ruin acres of grapes meant for winemaking, what can be done? One man has an answer.
You do get a little smoke off of it too, which is...
Michael Kudra tends bar in San Francisco, and at Reuters' request, he sampled a vodka that combines the flavor of environmental catastrophe with the taste of innovation.
Yeah, there it is. You get it more now.
This is Smoke Point Vodka. The wildfires that blanketed California's vineyards with acrid smoke in 2020 ended hopes the grapes might end up bottled as wine.
As soon as you see smoke around your vineyard, you need to suspect, especially close to harvest, you need to suspect that there is a possibility for that aroma to get inside the berry.
Nicholas Kie is the operations officer for Crimson Wine Group, which owns Pine Ridge Vineyards Carneros brand in Napa Valley. Rather than make a wine with an ashtray aroma or throw it out, he partnered with a distillery, Hangar One Vodka, to turn the wine made from smoke-tainted grapes into hard liquor. One bartender approves.
You get that like light, almost like a taste of a barbecue. Not like from far away, that smell. Like, you know, somebody's using coals.
Our goal was not to make a smoky vodka.
Emily Webster runs sales and marketing for Hangar One.
Vodka is basically a neutral spirit, but it does retain the character of the base material. So we were hoping to create something that was new in the category of vodka, neutral-ish, so that people could enjoy it while also doing something good for their community.
All proceeds from sales go to the California Fire Foundation, which assists firefighters, their families, and communities.
A charity auction taking place this week features guitars from members of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and U2. The guitars are on public display at the Van Eaton Galleries in Sherman Oaks, Los Angeles, now through December 10th.
Hey, you, what you gonna do? Come along with me down to ukulele, you.
That's record producer Bob Ezrin riffing on a ukulele donated by Eddie Vedder to Music Rising's Guitar Icons charity auction. Just one instrument amongst a staggering array from across the decades of rock music.
These are personally played instruments that, you know, there are songs, many songs have been written on these guitars, and it's just testimony to how much people care about New Orleans and what it really means in terms of the legacy of rock and roll.
We started Music Rising in response to Katrina and Rita when they first hit the Gulf South. To us, that's the crucible of American and world music, and it's so important, and we saw it all washed away in a flood. So we decided to try to replace the instruments that had been lost.
Beautiful from Bruce and Ronnie.
The autographed instruments donated to the event range from Bruce Springsteen and Ronnie Wood to Paul Stanley of Kiss, and of course, from The Edge himself.
It's an instrument that's been on dozens of stages across the world for that song and others. It's an amazing guitar. The tone is incredible, and I picked this one because it just sounded the best.
And it's hand painted.
That's
Every
right.
one of these are unique.
So this is a Eddie Vedder owned and smashed guitar. If you see the damage to the body, and so this has been an instrument
He
that
uses
he
it
has.
for Bubba O'Reilly, and so in Who fashion, he smashes it on the stage.
And this from Elton John. This is really the only keyboard in the auction, but it's an amazing piece. Stage used, fully weighted.
Yeah, you can feel those lovely fingers on this keyboard.
This is obviously one of the star items in the auction. This is from Paul McCartney, a very important bass from the Wings days. Obviously it's left-handed.
Yeah.
Flat wound strings, which were all the rage in those days. Amazing instrument.
The auction is hosted by Van Eaton Galleries and takes place December 11th online and in person.
The U.S. Postal Service predicts it will process, ship, and deliver 12 billion items over the holiday season. 2/3 of those are expected to be packages. This is down from last year's record-breaking 13 billion items. The agency expects to ship billions of letters, cards, and packages across the country. The Postal Service says at least around 7 million square feet of additional space over 40 locations. The agency has also hired roughly 40,000 seasonal workers to handle the increased volume. The agency forecasts the week of December 13th will be the busiest period for mailing, shipping, and delivery. It predicts December 19th will be the organization's busiest day online. The Postmaster General assured the public that the U.S. Postal Service would not repeat last year's slowdown. Only 38% of the agency's non-local first-class mail arrived on time last year. Senator Marco Rubio is calling on Airbnb to stop listing rental properties in China's Xinjiang region, especially those owned by a paramilitary group involved in China's human rights abuses. In a letter to Airbnb's CEO, Rubio says the company listed some properties on land owned by XPCC, a state-owned group involved in the ongoing genocide of Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities and religious groups in China. He says by maintaining these listings, Airbnb is unwittingly enriching this organization and also risks violating U.S. sanction law. Ahead of the U.S.'s Democracy Summit later this week, China appears to cast a shadow over the event, although it was not invited. Beijing issued a lengthy paper criticizing U.S.-style democracy while praising its one-party system.
Their domestic governance is messed up.
The Chinese Communist Party took American-style democracy to task on Saturday. In a news conference, the party claimed that China has its own form of democracy, and the party says that its form is superior in a white paper titled China, Democracy That Works. In the white paper, the Communist Party praises the so-called virtues of its one-party model, calling it socialist democracy. The white paper says democracy and dictatorship are not contradictory because they are both to ensure that the people are the owners of the country. The CCP goes on to say suppressing the very few is to protect the majority, and dictatorship is a tool to achieve democracy. The paper then sharply criticizes what it calls U.S.-style democracy, calling it a game of money politics and rule of the few over the many. The move comes just ahead of President Biden's Global Democracy Summit later this week. The summit invites representatives from more than 100 countries, but not China. The CCP appears to feel threatened by the summit, which it sees as a pushback against its political system. CCP officials hit back, saying the summit divides countries and points fingers at others. The White House slammed the criticism. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the summit discusses ways to stand up for democracy around the world, and, quote, "That's nothing we're going to apologize for." Beijing is trying to portray its system as more effective than the U.S. model. But some netizens question if the CCP really represents the majority of Chinese people. One netizen says, at least 1 billion or so of the population likely don't belong to the CCP's classification of people.
And soaring gas prices are threatening the famous Murano glass from Venice, Italy. Glassblowers there are struggling to pay their gas bill, which have quadrupled for many of them. Stay tuned to find out more.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
If you visit Venice, Italy, you may have heard about a tiny island there known for traditional glass blowing. Europe's soaring gas prices are now threatening the industry. Glass blowers have to either stop producing or raise their prices. Let's take a look.
The island of Murano in the Venice Lagoon has been manufacturing glass since the late 13th century. Murano glass is famed for its colors and sophistication. But a global surge in gas prices is making it hard to keep furnaces open, threatening the survival of glass blowers.
We are talking about a gas bill that has quadrupled. At the end of September, we paid 40,000 euro for a consumption of about 175 cubic meters. In October, we were paying 170,000 euro, and this affects the final price of the products by 15%.
Murano's glass manufacturing involves some 60 firms employing around 1,000 workers. It was already struggling to recover from the pandemic, and the sudden rise in fuel costs now seems like the last straw.
We need to raise the price by 30 to 40%, with a risk of pricing ourselves out of the market, or the least painful thing to do is stop producing.
Gas prices have risen this year across Europe due to several factors, including low inventories and increased demand. Russia also added fuel to the flame by not supplying more than contracted volumes. A glass factory owner says his company consumes about 2.6 million gallons of gas a year.
For us, gas is to us what water is to others. It is indispensable for our work. This increase in price is about 500%. It is leaving us an enormous difficulty.
Rome has set aside more than 3 billion euros or $3.4 billion to curb the increase in retail energy bills, but Murano artisans say this is not enough.
There are some who have already closed because strategically they have thought it better to close now and reopen at the beginning of next year.
The glass factory owners want to remind people that the Murano system of glass manufacturing doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and that more needs to be done to preserve this unique culture.
Bathhouses are a fixture and cherished part of life in Japan, but rising oil prices are hitting owners' wallets. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Tokuji Ito is the third-generation owner of a Japanese public bath in Tokyo. He's a former oil trader who came back to work in the family business 5 years ago. and surging oil prices have him worried about the future. With the coldest months of the year upon him, he now has to pay 50% more compared to last year to heat the water.
Since this October to November, dealer prices for heavy oil, which we use to heat the bathwater, have risen about 10 to 15%. Just after the COVID-19 pandemic, we were hoping to get customers back, so it's very tough that fuel costs will rise this winter.
Public baths, or sento, traditionally served people who did not have a bath at home. They have also been places to socialize and promote community ties. But Ito now has to pay $3,900 a month in December and January for gasoline to heat the giant boiler that feeds hot water into the tubs, up from $2,600 in January 2020. And since the price for the bath is fixed by the Tokyo government, he can't pass along the higher cost to his customers.
Bathhouses are gradually closing. I live far away, but I come here because the bathhouse is a necessity. So I hope they will continue. I don't mind if they raise the price.
Japan's public baths peaked at 18,000 in 1968, but now only about 1,900 remain. Many have added new services like beer on tap or saunas, popular with the youth. Ito is hoping to be able to stick it out until the warmer months, when less fuel will be needed. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Going to Finland, tourism operators in Lapland fear the Omicron variant could put an end to another lucrative Christmas season. Operators are taking each day as it comes. For some of the smaller ones, this season's success is a make-or-break scenario. This report comes from NTD's Eddie Aitken.
The pandemic and subsequent lockdowns and travel restrictions hit Finnish Lapland's tourism industry hard. After hoping for a return to normality, airlines and tourism operators fear the Omicron variant could have a negative impact on this year's Christmas season.
It's true that we were bouncing and we were really hoping to recover by the end of the year. And we were, for example, our winter program is 182 destinations this winter. So that means we are resuming the full network. Now there is uncertainty, but I would say the situation is totally different compared to the beginning of the crisis. A lot of people are vaccinated. So I really believe that the travel will still be possible. We will just adapt like we have adapted during the first part of the crisis.
According to tourist board Visit Rovaniemi, 61,000 tourists visited the city in December 2019, over 51,000 from overseas. But last year saw a drop of 82%, only 11,000, with 1,100 from abroad. Accommodation sales also dropped by 90% in December 2020. Some didn't bother opening at all, including the nearby Santa Park theme park, built in an old air raid shelter.
Basically March, April, we decided that we're going to be closing the cavern for the summer and see how it goes. Then in the autumn time, we came in the conclusion there's no point for opening the Christmas, so we missed last Christmas season totally. We tried to have the hotel open, but we also gave up on that one. So basically, Santa Park has been closed for 2 years, hotel for 1 year, over 1 year, but now we're back.
As of July 2021, travelers can enter Finland if they have valid proof of full vaccination against COVID-19. Due to the Omicron variant, travelers who have visited some African countries in the last 14 days are not allowed entry. For many small operators, the new variant and potential restrictions pose a massive threat.
For many smaller companies, this winter is the make it or break it. If this winter doesn't happen, then they will go out of business.
For now, tourists are making the trip, relieved to have made it on their dream winter getaway.
We had some concerns about getting back into the U.S. and the testing requirements and everything, and I know now they've changed it. We have to take the test 1 day prior. But I think we're prepared and we've done our research, so we've been enjoying our trip without too much concern.
As tourists continue to arrive in Rovaniemi, operators know further travel restrictions could shatter their dream Christmas holiday. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Christmas is often known as the season of light, but this year in Germany, one household looks darker than usual after pandemic restrictions put out half of its holiday lights. Let's take a look.
Every year in December, thousands of Christmas lights illuminate this house in northern Germany, creating festive landscapes packed with decorations in all sizes, shapes, and colors. But under the country's tightened pandemic restrictions, things are a little different this holiday season.
We had to reduce the display by more than 50% as we don't have so much space at the front.
The 130,000 lights used in years past are now down to only 40,000, a major reduction, but far from complete darkness. The homeowner pointed to a pond barely visible under the night sky.
Where we are standing now is usually our giant ice world. Now it's just a normal garden pond. And over there at the back, we usually have the big starry sky and other things, but everything has to stay dark now.
His father first started the house's Christmas tradition 20 years ago. Over the years, the illuminated display has included a dancing Father Christmas, polar bears from the North Pole, reindeer, and much more. The annual event used to draw in some 80 visitors per day. Now only a few pop by.
Usually, we would have opened up our mulled wine hut every day, but this year we can only open on the weekend from 5 to 8 o'clock, as sadly the visitors have not been turning up.
A 23-foot Christmas tree stands in the front yard, adorned with around 10,000 lights. Though not as bright as before, it still offers a glimmer of the Christmas spirit. Normally, the family starts decorating in September, but now they have more time to enjoy the holiday privately.
U.S. military service members at Andersen Air Force Base in Guam are preparing donated goods for delivery. It's in support of the 70th annual Operation Christmas Drop. Crews will airdrop donated food, supplies, and educational materials to islanders throughout the southeastern Pacific, according to a statement from the U.S. Department of Defense. The statement also said the effort will also allow Pacific Air Forces to execute low-cost, low-altitude airdrop training. Starting next year, visitors will need a permit to hike one of the National Park Service's most popular trails. Officials at Zion National Park in Utah are implementing a lottery system for Angel's Landing. Permits will be required starting April 1st. Prospective hikers can get them through a lottery system. There's a $6 fee to enter a drawing and an additional $3 per person for those who are picked. The fees will go towards supporting park rangers. The National Park Service says this new system will help reduce crowding and safety concerns. Angel's Landing, while popular, is dangerous. Hikers scale a nearly 1,500-foot tall rock formation to reveal sweeping views of the canyons below. The park has seen 10 known deaths since 2004. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.